ambassadors, the permanent representatives of France and Germany are here. So just to remind that this is a press conference for the presentation of the program of works of the Security Council for June and July, so under the presidency of France and then Germany. The press conference will be streamed live on Facebook and also normally on web TV, on the UN web TV. Just to remind journalists that to please you to raise your hands if you have questions through the Zoom app, or you can also request the word through the chat. Please mute your microphone also if you're not speaking, and I think we can begin. Maybe if you're ready, Monsieur Ambassador.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for connecting to this press conference. I hope everyone is fine and safe in these particular and difficult times. We wanted to present jointly with Christoph Heusgen the two program of works for June and July, because France and Germany worked together to define them, as we did last year. In March and April 2019, it allowed having continuity and coherence during 2 months, so it is best to keep good habits. These two presidencies are also included this year in a so-called European Spring, with the succession of Estonia, France, and Germany chairing the Security Council. Of course, there is enhanced cooperation and coordination between the three of us in order to push common issues and to coordinate working method during these 3 months. The general context of the French presidency, you can figure it out, is a bit extraordinary due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which affects our work environment, but which is also a major concern, affecting all the items on the agenda of the Council, and we will take this into account throughout the month. This month of June is always a very busy month at the Security Council because of the regular mandatory rendezvous and the mandates to renew. And the program of work reflects it pretty well. Concerning the method, I would begin by saying that French presidency will continue to be a month of remote working for the Security Council, as the conditions are not met yet to return to the chamber. The adapted working methods allow the Security Council to continue to work, and the global result is not so bad, as we were able to meet, but also to decide with already almost, I believe 8 resolutions adopted through the written procedure. I wish also to underline that we attach a particular importance to transparency and openness. Civil society briefers will be invited to the Council at several meetings. We will also be very attached to the efficiency and effectiveness of the Council, so we will try to favor close discussions as often as possible, and we will intend to issue regularly press elements or press statements after the closed meetings. Speaking of openness and efficiency, I cannot overstate the importance of multilingualism. The linguistic regime of the UN was set to enable the proper functioning of its deliberative bodies. And to tell you the truth, it has been a collateral damage of the COVID because of the virtual working methods. So this is why I will chair the Council in French this month, which is a working language of the UN. It will not be done to the detriment of efficiency. We will provide member states and the public with translation, and I hope that we will soon have online interpretation. Concerning the program of work itself, as I just told you, June is always very busy with almost all PKOs in Africa and all the Middle East crisis on the agenda, but also non-proliferation and justice issues. I will just want to highlight 3 main block of priorities during the month of June. First of all, Africa. It will be an important month for peace and security in Africa. We will hold on June 11 a ministerial meeting on Mali and MINUSMA, chaired by my Foreign Minister, Jean-Yves Le Drian, with a briefing by the Secretary-General and also the African Union. But there will be also meetings on the Central African Republic, South Sudan, the DRC, the Sahel, and Burundi. We will get back to that later. Secondly, security and non-proliferation in the Middle East will be the second block of issues. We will hold the 3 traditional meetings on Syria. We will have a meeting on Yemen, on Afghanistan, on Palestine, of course, and we will end the month of June with a review of Resolution 2231 and the GCPOA. And last but not least, and it's very dear to my heart, we will have a priority on the most vulnerable people, with first briefing by the High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, and we will be able to discuss the interaction between the Security Council and its mandate and the High Commissioner for Refugees. There is a lot to be done together. And also the second topic under this chapter has to do with the anniversary, the 15th anniversary of Resolution 1612 related to children in armed conflicts. It's a big success of the Security Council in the last 15 years. We have been able to make a lot of progress for children in armed conflict, and we will see how we can push the issue forward. Throughout the month, the Council will also assess the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic on peace and security. Of course, we will be also celebrating on the 26th of June the 75th anniversary of the Charter. It will be done mainly in the General Assembly. And we may also, together with Germany, organize a virtual meeting of the Alliance for Multilateralism at ministerial level, probably focused on health and infodemia. And I stop there, and I will be at your disposal for any question. And I know I leave it to Christoph.
Yes, thank you very much, Nicolas. It's a great pleasure to repeat our joint presidencies from last year. I recall March and April of last year, where Nicolas, with your successor, François Delattre, we had this for the first time, the German-French presidencies, and I'm very happy that we can repeat it this year. It is because we share objectives, but it's also a symbol, and also sends a message to the wider membership of where you can arrive at when you look back at history, where Germany and France in the first half of last century fought 2 major wars, and where we got in the second half with regard to our cooperation between our countries. So this is a very good signal. At the same time, a bit helped by the alphabet, we are 3 Europeans. We have Estonia that has just finished its presidency, and so we have the European Spring, in which I would also like to include Belgium in February, a bit before spring, but we work very closely together, the 4 of us, and it is not only on working methods, but it has to do a lot with the common objective. And the common objective of the Europeans is to strengthen the Security Council, to strengthen multilateralism, to strengthen the rules-based international order. For us, the 1st of July does not only mark the beginning of our second President Security Council, it is also the start of the presidency in the European Union. And the presidency in the European Union will be, there will be 3 major objectives. One is to revitalize the European economy. The second one is to strengthen the internal coherence. And the third one is also to strengthen the external action of the European Union, and our European Spring is part of that program to strengthen the European external action. Now, with regard to the program, we are not as far advanced as our French friends are. Actually, this morning in the Security Council, the program of work was agreed upon for the month of June. Our program will only be officially then confirmed early July, so I can be only a bit more vague with regard to our program. Of course, we will look at all the items that more or less automatically in a certain rhythm come on the agenda, and we'll try to deal in an efficient way with those. But we want to use the month of July again, as we did last year, the month of April, to present what we call a comprehensive view of security. We don't want to look at, let's say, hard security and conflicts, but we want to look at the root causes of conflict, the drivers of conflict. So for us, security and health, for instance, what we just see with regard to COVID-19 will be one item, and this will be on our agenda, just as it was starting with the Dominican Republic, Estonia, and with France. We will look at climate and security. Already last time when we were in the security, 2011, 2012, we had the topic of climate and security on our agenda. We want to come back with this. We see a lot of support within the membership of the Security Council on this aspect. Again, climate as one of the drivers of conflict. We look at human rights and security. We will look again at the issue of women, peace and security. You may remember that in April of last year, the resolution 2467 with regard to sexual violence in conflict was adopted, and we would want to again look at the women, peace and security agenda, in particular look at also where we stand with regard to sexual violence in conflict. And we will look at humanitarian issues. In our presidency, again, we want to include civil society. We want to include briefers from civil society, in particular women. Now, with regard to the working methods, we have met since end of March virtually. We want to go back as early as possible in the chamber. We believe that having meetings in person is important. In-person diplomacy cannot be replaced by virtual meetings, but it also sends a message when the Security Council is back in the UN premises. Of course, we have to see what New York allows for, and of course, we have to see that all the necessary health precautions are observed. But we approached the Secretary-General and said, well, let's see that we can come back to the UN building. So let me stop here, and I'm also ready to respond to questions. And I saw in the chat that there are already a couple who want to ask questions. So thank you.
Thank you very much, ambassadors. Let's try to do it by the rule of the press conferences in the UN, and give maybe the first question to Anka. But I don't know if Valeria, you have one.
Yes, I do.
So go ahead.
Thank you, ambassadors. Thank you for this briefing, and we wish you the best of luck for the 2 months of presidency of France and Germany. My question is on Libya. I was wondering if has been any progress on the appointment of a successor of Ghassan Salame as a UN envoy for Libya? And also, what do you expect from the close meeting on Mission Irene in the Security Council? Thank you.
Should we, Alexis, take one after the other?
Yes, please. Sorry. Do you want to answer now?
If you want, and maybe Christoph will join as well. Valeria, on the first one, we haven't made any progress on appointment of the successor of Ghassan Salame. The ASG already proposed two names, one after the other, and the first one was rejected, and the second one has not been agreed yet. So it's really painful. I really think we should authorize the ASG to appoint a successor to Mr. Salame. The situation in Libya is really bad. It's not improving on the ground. It's deteriorating. There are talks going on to establish a ceasefire, but we would really need more than ever somebody from the UN to replace Ghassan. So it's really urgent now. Second, Irene, it has been a request by Russia to hold this session. As you know, Operation Irene from the European Union has been created recently. It replaces an NAVFOR Sophia. It's just about controlling the embargo in the high sea. We will have just a report from the External Action Service to tell you where we are on Irene. We believe this new operation is just a successor of the previous one. It operates under the exact same mandate as the one that was established for Operation Sophia. So we will just want, I'm sure Christoph will comment as well, we just want also to emphasize the leading role by Europe on this Libyan file and explain that we are doing a very useful thing in trying to prevent violation of the embargo vis-à-vis Libya. So, and I think it will be an opportunity to discuss all the other aspects of the Libyan file as well. But I leave it to Christoph because Germany will prepare the renewal of Resolution 2292.
Yes, thanks. To start with this, it's exactly as Nicolas said. The new mission Irene is covered by the existing resolution, and we are looking at a rollover to see to it that again the UN Security Council agrees and gives the backing to this operation, which we believe plays a very important role to stop the flow of arms into this country. On the first question, Valeria, it is, as Nicolas said, it is really a pity that at this stage the nomination of successor to Ghassan Salame is blocked. It is very clear, everybody who follows the conflict, there is no military solution, and there can only be a political solution. And by withholding the agreement to a proposal by the Secretary-General with regard to the Special Envoy, those responsible for this block carry a very heavy responsibility. Thank you.
We'll take a couple of questions at every time now. So Pamela and then Eddie, please.
Sorry, it's Pamela Falk. Thank you, ambassadors, both for the briefing. My question first is to Ambassador de Rivière. You said last week that the Security Council was frozen between 1945 and 1990, but there has not been a coronavirus resolution, and there's been a lot of back and forth about it. Is the Security Council somewhat frozen now. And my question to Ambassador Heusgen is, are you optimistic about tomorrow's donor conference on Yemen? We've heard dire reports and sense of what is going on. I think it was USG Lowcock who said we could see Yemen fall off a cliff. So what are you thinking about tomorrow? Thank you both.
Thank you, Pamela. Eddie?
I just unmuted. Thank you very much. A couple of follow-ups. It's more than 2 months since the Secretary-General called for a global ceasefire. It seems to a lot of us that the prospects for a resolution are dead. And I wondered your assessments. And I also wonder if you could elaborate a little on what you expect from the review of 2231 at the end of the month. Have the Americans given any indication of their interest in snapback? And are you expecting a possible discussion on a resolution that they're pushing on a new arms embargo against Iran? Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Monsieur l'ambassadeur, peut-être pour commencer, pour la France.
Okay. First, to Pamela, I don't think it's exactly the same. I think between 1945 and 1990, the Security Council was almost frozen. There were a couple of decisions after World War II, a couple of decisions in the 80s, especially in Africa, but the Council would almost never meet, never decide because of the Cold War. We are absolutely not at all in the same situation now. Since 1990, the business of the Security Council has been multiplied by 5, 6, or 7 in terms of meeting, decisions, PKOs, etc. So I think it's working much, much, much better than before the end of the Cold War, of course. Now, the situation is just the following, and I don't think I will explain something new to you. When you find yourself in a situation where 2 or more major stakeholders have very different views, the Council is stuck. The Council is stuck on COVID-19 now. The Council has been stuck on other issues before. It's stuck on Syria since 2011. And we may be stuck again on issues when you have a major difference between the major stakeholders. This is the way the UN Security Council has been established. There is nothing really new with that. The question is just how to make sure that most of the business of the councils can be conducted in an efficient manner, and just try to make sure that these differences do not pollute all the Security Council activities. But I'm pretty confident we can do that. Second, Yemen, I leave it to Christoph. The COVID-19 resolution, I don't think it's dead. It's not just we haven't been able to reach a conclusion. So we will continue to try as much as we can, France and Tunisia. I think you're right. There is a big difference between the US and China on this one. I'm not sure it can be overcome in the next days or weeks, but we cannot afford to give up, and we will not. So we will continue. And last but not least, Edith, Iran and 2231. We haven't received the report yet, so we look at the report when it's there. We haven't received indication on arms embargo or snapback on all these issues. The only thing I want to tell you that is this framework, this resolution, this agreement has been a success. It has been a success of European diplomacy. We started together with Germany and the UK in 2003 with a so-called double approach, meaning pressure on Iran on the nukes, on the other issues as well, and engagement with Iran as well to try to negotiate an agreement. We did it after 12 years. We had this agreement. This agreement worked well. It worked well, and it needs to be protected. So this is why the Europeans want to preserve this framework. You cannot replace a framework that works with the absence of any framework, especially when you're dealing with nuclear proliferation, because this is our priority number one. In the absence of such a framework, you go back to the situation before 2015, where there is absolutely no limitation for Iran to go back to its full nuclear military program. So we think it would be irresponsible, and we need to be very careful.
Yes, Pamela, thanks for raising Yemen. Yemen sometimes threatens to be forgotten. And when you look closer at Yemen, you see that we have in front of our eyes a humanitarian catastrophe. It was already bad before COVID-19 started. It is the country where the humanitarian needs are the highest. It's a country where hundreds of thousands of children are starving, and where the parties are not complying also with international humanitarian law. When you see how the Houthis are creating huge problems for the humanitarian aid to arrive at the people who are in need. We see at the same time that in the south, the situation has become even more complex with the SDC in control. Right now, when you look at the country, it is the hardest hit by COVID-19 with incredible numbers. And so we have the conflict, we have COVID-19, we have no governance, basically. We owe it to the people that indeed we actually respond to the appeal by the Secretary-General, by the for humanitarian aid. The Secretary-General, I think, asked for more than 2 billion in humanitarian aid. Germany will again contribute with a considerable amount. I don't want to disclose it here because this is what is going to happen tomorrow at the conference. But for us, it's very important that also the countries in the region contribute to this, to the fund, to the humanitarian aid, which, as I said before, is in need. Martin Griffiths is trying very, very hard to come to a political solution, but I must say they are irresponsible partners, irresponsible parties there, who on the back of the civilian population are continuing their fighting. Thank you.
Thank you both, ambassadors.
Thank you. I'm still going in the order of the questions. So maybe if you can make it short in order that we have the maximum questions. So we'll have Mohsen, James, and Abdelhamid. Mohsen.
Hello, Ambassador. I'm Mohsen from IRNA, Iranian News Agency. My question is, the US government has repeatedly raised the human rights issue in other countries in the Security Council. Given the recent unrest and some brutal actions of United States police against the protesters, do you have any plan to raise the issue in the Security Council?
Thank you, James.
James Bays from Al Jazeera. My questions are quick follow-ups on Libya, on the answer on Libya. Reports of Russian jets being repainted in Syria and sent to Libya. What are your views on that? Secondly, on the new SRSG to replace Ghassan Salame, it was the US that blocked the first candidate. I understand it's the US that have the trouble with the second one. Can you explain what seems to be the problem? Are they still pushing to have the job split in two? And specifically to the German ambassador, how do you plan to reinvigorate the Berlin process? Have you any further meetings planned?
And Abdelhamid?
Thank you very much. This is Abdelhamid Sayam from the Arabic daily Al-Quds Al-Arabi, and my questions to both of you, Mr. Ambassadors, about Israel planning on the 1st of July to annex almost 30% of the occupied Palestinian territories. This is unprecedented. And I want your views what the Security Council can do. Can you, Ambassador of Germany, Mr. Heusgen, do something as the President of the Security Council? Will there be a draft resolution? And what is your country's position vis-a-vis this illegal annexation? Thank you.
Thank you. Who wants to begin? Maybe Germany this time?
Yes, on the first question, the answer is no. On the second question, with regard to Libya, Germany is head of the Sanctions Committee on Libya, and we have the panel of experts which regularly then reports about violations of the sanctions, and the reports. The reports also are then at a certain stage published. And we have seen in these reports the degree of violation of international law that is, in my view, unprecedented. And we'll have to see also on what you have described, what the panel of experts comes up with. With regard to the nomination of Ghassan Salame's successor, I already said what I needed to say from our perspective. The Berlin process, we launched this process as a support to Ghassan Salame on his request for a successful continuation of this process. One of the key elements will be the early nomination of not only nomination, but then also the agreement on his successor, so that the political process, which, as I said earlier, for me is the only alternative, that the political process can be revitalized. There was a follow-up committee. We have 3 working groups. Some of them have met, and the plan remains on the table. As I said, it needs to have reinvigoration. On Israel, on plans for annexation, our position has been very clear for us. We remain committed to the UN Security Council resolutions. All changes of borders have to be agreed upon between the parties, between Israelis and Palestinians. And as I said, with regard to the borders, there are clear resolutions of the UN Security Council which remain valid. Thank you.
Thank you, Christoph. On human rights, in response to the first question, the mandate of the Security Council is not the same as the mandate of the Human Rights Council. So the mandate of the Security Council is international peace and security. Now, it's obvious, and it's probably more obvious now than in 1945, that frequently the human rights situation has an impact on international and regional peace and security. And then, and only then, the Security Council should take action. It doesn't mean that the Security Council is in charge of every single issues related to human rights. It's not. But when the human rights situation has an impact on international or regional peace and security, it should take action. And this is why we need to look at it carefully, because otherwise the council will be stocked and blamed for situation which are not 100% or even less than that under its mandate. Second, Libya. On Libya, I agree with everything Christoph said. We really need to unlock the situation and to get things back on track. It's very important. I have nothing more to add. And on Palestine, we have a long jurisprudence of the Security Council on this one. We just want to have this decision implemented, and this should be the case. All these decisions should be respected. It's Article 25 of the Charter. Security Council decision should be implemented, period. So we just hope that all UN members will abide to Security Council decisions, and all of them, because this is respect of the Charter, Article 25. So we make whatever it takes, we do whatever it takes to make sure that our collective decisions are respected.
Thank you. We'll now have a French-German couple of questions with Antje and then Carrie.
Yes, hi. With the from the European angle, I would like to come back to the term of the joint presidency. And I would like to know, last year you wrote history with introducing the first jumelage. What is the difference now of the kind of how you work together? Is it a difference to last year's joint presidency? How are the work procedures?
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, ambassadors, for this joint press conference. I have two quick questions. Last week, we've seen things escalating at the Council between US and China on the question of Hong Kong. How do you think that could weigh on the COVID resolution negotiation you're co-pen holder with Tunisia? Second question on Francophonie and about sharing this council in French. In this situation, how many of your counterparts can understand French at the council? I'm thinking the ambassador of Niger, Tunisia, Belgium, Estonia, but who else?
Thank you. Monsieur l'ambassadeur?
On the latter, I think Ambassador Heusgen speaks French as good as I do. So I will not have any difficulty with that. But on a more serious note, I think multilingualism, as I said in the beginning, is collateral damage of COVID-19. So we don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. Private meetings and consultation will be held in English in June. Public meetings I will chair in French, meaning, you know, doing the job of the president. And I think everybody understands when it's just about giving the floor. And our statement will be in French, but colleagues will be provided with translation in English. So I think nobody will lose anything. In the council, I think a number of colleagues speak or understand French. A number of others don't. And we need to make sure that everybody is comfortable. This is not just about defending the French language. This is also about cultural diversity. The UN is just 199 countries, different cultures, different background. So we just want to protect cultural diversity, and multilingualism is a part of that. US, China, Hong Kong, COVID. Obviously, there are tensions between the two on a variety of issues, including Hong Kong. And obviously, it doesn't help to find consensus on issues in the council. But I really want, as I said before, that the Council could continue to make the decisions and to conduct its business and to fulfill its mandate despite this disagreement between the US and China. It's absolutely essential. And on our first question, we just, last year, it was France in March, Germany in April, it was jumelage. This year, the same plus Estonia in the month of May. So we adapted the concept just for you guys not to get bored. And so this year is just European Spring. The most essential message is the one that was said to Christoph before. We are members of the European Union. We are friends. We share the same values. We want to act together. We want to promote Europe. We want to promote peace. As Christoph just said, it's very. I think it's also a good example. If you look, France and Germany in the last 150 years, basically this is 75 years of war, 1 continental war and 2 world wars, bloody wars, the 3 of them, and then we have 75 years of peace, friendship, bilateral treaties in 1963 and 2019, structuring our relation and our friendship, and basically France and Germany being at the very core of the European project, which has been a source of peace and prosperity in the last 60 years approximately. So I think we are setting a good example. We are coming from different backgrounds, different histories, but it's an example that I believe many in this organization should follow. You can make friends with your neighbor, even if you have been enemies. No need to tell you that France, my British colleague this morning in the Council reminded us that between France and Great Britain, it's not just 150 years, it's 1,000 years of war between France and the UK in history, and now we cooperate. So I think it's a good example we are putting together. As President Mitterrand used to say in France, France used to be at war with every single country in Europe except Denmark, which, it's a long history. So this is where we are coming from. And now we are just helping each other. In the context of COVID-19, the Chancellor and President Macron were able to decide a very, very ambitious package of solidarity within Europe. And this is what our citizens want us to do. And I think it's setting a good example for the rest of the world and for the UN.
There is not much I can add, but let me start with a remark to Carrie Noten and respond indirectly to Antje Bassenheim. Gary, when Nicolas and I, when we talk to each other, we fight about the language. He wants to speak German, I want to speak French so that we can practice our language. And I must say, Nicolas speaks perfectly German. So this is a good cooperation. But with regard to the president, last year it was really something spectacular. This year is already to a certain degree routine. But it's not only a symbol. I was just thinking of an example that I want to demonstrate how important that cooperation is. Germany is co-penholder on the cross-border resolution with regard to humanitarian aid that goes into Syria. And you may remember the dramatic weeks in December and January of last and this year, when in the end the resolution was adopted, 2504. It was the E10, and from the P5 it was France that voted in favor. All the other P5 abstained. This showed the very close cooperation we had at the time between us, the penholders, Belgium and Germany and France, that we worked hand in hand, and we were able then to get this across the finish line. And that was an example of how close the cooperation is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I have now a question from Sylviane and one from Evelyn, please. Sylviane.
Ma question est en français. Ma question est en français. Je m'adresse aux deux ambassadeurs. Merci beaucoup. Je suis Sylviane Zehil de l'Orient le Jour, basée à Beyrouth. Ma question, c'est sur la FINUL. Le président du Liban, Michel Aoun, a convoqué mercredi après-demain les ambassadeurs des P5 et +1 pour discuter du renouvellement du mandat de la FINUL fin août sans modification. Les États-Unis et Israël redoublent d'efforts aux Nations Unies pour modifier son mandat avant le renouvellement prévu le 31 août 2020. Étant entendu que le Liban a donné les directives, d'abord refuse d'apporter toute modification à son mandat, ainsi que la diminution du nombre de ses effectifs, de son budget, afin de mener à mandat et d'améliorer sa relation avec les habitants de la région et la coordination avec la force onusienne et l'armée libanaise pour éviter tout incident ultérieur. Quelle est la position de la France face aux tentatives américaines et israéliennes de modifier le déploiement de la FINUL? Merci.
Merci, Sylviane. So, Evelyn, if you want, you can ask your question in German.
You called on me just now? Sorry.
Yes, your turn.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Merci beaucoup und Dankeschön und guten Tag et bonjour. I just want to understand what you said on the possible annexation of the Jordan Valley. Are you going to talk about it after it happens, if it happens, or are you speaking about it this month under France's presidency? And secondly, I have one on Yemen. How do you handle Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia is responsible for demolishing many of the humanitarian sites in Yemen, the ones in Hutu areas, and at the same time, they've given the most money to build them up, and many of the Western countries are supplying them with weapons. So I just wonder how you handle this whole thing, starting with tomorrow's conference. Thank you very much, Danke.
Maybe Germany to answer now as we alternate. Oh, who begins?
Oui, bon, je peux essayer de répondre en français. En ce qui concerne le FINUL, seulement pour dire que pour l'Allemagne, c'est une opération qui est très, très importante. Depuis 2006, déjà, l'Allemagne apporte la partie maritime de cette mission. Et notre impression depuis était que c'est regardé comme une partie importante. Et nous avons eu aussi l'impression que côté américain, côté surtout israélien, cette partie est vue d'une façon très positive. C'est pour ça que nous sommes d'avis qu'il faut prolonger le mandat et nous pensons que le mandat qui est comme il est, mais qu'il apporte quelque chose d'important pour la stabilité du pays. Ce n'est pas parfait, mais c'est comme tous les mandats des Nations Unies, c'est le résultat des négociations et le mandat était le résultat des négociations au sein des Nations Unies. With regard to Yemen, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, of course, carries a lot of responsibility. Saudi Arabia is part of the alliance. Evelyn, you mentioned also what have been repercussions of the aerial attacks on Yemen, which were also conducted by the alliance, the number of civilian deaths, the number of health facilities that have been destroyed. So Saudi Arabia carries a lot of responsibility and is of course a major partner of Martin Griffiths in his efforts to come to a political solution. And Saudi Arabia needs to play its part. Germany does not sell weapons to Saudi Arabia. We believe, as I said earlier on other conflict, there is no military solution to this conflict. We have to have it politically. And with regard to the humanitarian aid, I mentioned before the donors conference tomorrow. And of course, Saudi Arabia has to participate and has to contribute in a significant way to have then the financial contribution and to have the goal of the pledging conference achieved. Thank you.
On Yemen, I have nothing to add to what Christoph just said. On annexation, not much to add neither, because we will have a meeting in the Security Council on June 24th. It will be the monthly meeting on Israel and Palestine, and we will discuss that. Again, we will certainly reiterate our strong desire to have the Security Council resolutions and international law respected, and we will be ready to react if needed, but let's see how it develops. There are not many reasons to be optimistic. Et sur la finule, en un mot, évidemment d'accord avec ce que Christophe a dit tout à l'heure. La finule existe depuis 1978. C'est une assez vieille opération de maintien de la paix. La France participe depuis le début, assez substantiellement. Il faut savoir aussi que c'est une opération au sein de laquelle les Européens sont très présents. L'Allemagne, la composante maritime, la France a à peu près encore 800 soldats, l'Italie, l'Espagne, l'Irlande, la Finlande. Donc c'est une opération de maintien de la paix à très forte composante européenne. C'est ce qui fait sa particularité, c'est ce qui fait aussi sa qualité en dépit des critiques. Là-dessus, je dirais qu'elle joue un rôle essentiel parce qu'elle est déployée dans une zone extrêmement sensible entre Israël et le Liban. Elle fait l'objet de critiques, mais je crois que tout le monde reconnaît son caractère irremplaçable. C'est un mandat difficile, ce n'est pas un mandat d'imposition de la paix sous chapitre 7. Elle n'a pas pour mandat de désarmer les groupes déployés dans cette zone. Alors des améliorations sont possibles. Des améliorations ont été apportées depuis 2 ou 3 ans dans la manière dont la FIDUL opère dans la zone de son mandat. Peut-être que d'autres améliorations sont possibles, mais ça n'est pas une opération d'imposition de la paix. Je crois qu'il faut être très clair là-dessus. C'est une opération de maintien de la paix qui n'est pas sous chapitre 7 et qui doit donc faire remplir son mandat de manière complète. Il faut l'aider. Les parties doivent mutuellement l'aider et respecter aussi le droit et les résolutions à cet égard. Et on va renouveler ce mandat d'ici la fin du mois d'août. On ne va pas le renouveler avant. Le terme du mandat, c'est fin août 2020. Et à cet égard, le Conseil de sécurité décide lui-même en consultant les parties.
Merci, thank you. So this is the last bunch of questions before we end our 1 hour together. So we'll have Iftikhar Ali, then David, and to finish Stefano. So Iftikhar Ali, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sir, you mentioned that there would be a Security Council meeting on Afghanistan. I would like to know on what aspect of the situation in Afghanistan will this meeting be? Will you be seeking an extension of ceasefire or the quick implementation of US-Taliban agreement? Thank you.
Thank you. David?
Thanks. Question on Hong Kong. Both your countries didn't make a public statement as far as I could see following the closed Security Council meeting on Hong Kong. So I was just wondering if you think it was a productive meeting to have on Hong Kong and whether further meetings such as that one are warranted if China follows up on its vow to take more control over Hong Kong. And secondly, just on a question that Pamela asked, you mentioned the Council is working a lot better these days than during the Cold War, but that you are concerned that bilateral tensions could hurt the Council's work. So just wondering, besides the COVID-19 and other existing fault lines like Syria, what are some areas that could actually be threatened as these tensions between these two countries grow? Are there areas where previously these two countries were allowing for collaboration that may now suffer as these tensions grow? Thank you.
Thank you. And Stefano. Is Stefano still with us? I don't find him anymore, so maybe Germany to begin this time. We respect the alternates.
On Afghanistan, what in the Security Council usually happens with regard to Afghanistan, of course, is that we listen to the report of the Special Representative of the Secretary-General. You know, we have a new Special Representative, and we'll have the report, and then, of course, there will be a number of issues in these discussions. We have followed the formation of the government, and that was a painful process, and we'll, of course, listen to the latest developments there, which go into a positive direction with regard to the division of labor, etc., between the players. You know the subject. Number two, we have witnessed a ceasefire over at the end of Ramadan, which was very positive, but we have again seen a flare-up of fighting afterwards. And then the big question, of course, is the question of the intra-Afghan peace talks. We, as Germany, have always been backing those. We really want these talks to start to be meaningful. We want them to be inclusive, participation of civil society and women, and we hope really that these talks will yield. At the same time, we have the US Taliban talks, and what is happening in this framework, and all these topics will be then on the agenda of Security Council when next time we deal with Afghanistan. David, your question was the meeting at the Security Council productive? Very difficult to have to know what criteria you have to say if something is productive or not. It's a question that Nicolas raised earlier. What are the subjects in the Security Council? What subjects can be raised, should be raised, are raised in an effective way? So under any other business, member states can raise issues, and that was done last week. We have to see actually on the situation on the ground, and we have to follow what with regard to the implementation of the Sino-British Joint Declaration of 1984, the Hong Kong Basic Law, the implementation of the one country, two systems principles, and we have to see the situation developing there, and to see that China will uphold its international commitments. Thank you.
Afghanistan, I agree with Christoph. The meeting on 24th of June will be an occasion to take stock on where we are. The situation remains extremely difficult. There has been this peace agreement, but there are still terrorist attacks. It will be 3 months after the adoption of Resolution 2513. The Council wants to be in support of the agreement between the US and Taliban. So we'll see if there is any progress, and it will be the first occasion to listen to the new SRSG, Deborah Lyons from Canada, and we want to support her in her job. And also we want to emphasize our priorities. Absent of the agreement was the dimension of protecting women in Afghanistan, and I think it's very important for us as well. The meeting last Friday on Hong Kong, I don't know if it was productive or not. Like Christoph, I believe you judge things on their results. So if there are any improvement of the situation, does it make the difference? At the end of the day, the Security Council it's not just a place to talk, it's an executive body where you are supposed to make decisions and to implement the decision and to get results. So I don't think we have been there on this one. And I just want to reiterate the European Union position on Hong Kong, which is exactly the one Christoph described. We are looking at this in a very vigilant manner, but it's more something we want to follow up on among Europeans. And the bilateral tensions spill over, I hope not. So for the time being, there are many issues which are very important for the Council in Africa, in the Middle East, in Haiti, Afghanistan, we just mentioned. So I really hope we will be able to continue to protect most of the Security Council business and also to take new initiatives without any negative interference from bilateral tensions.
So we came to the end of this press conference. So thank you everyone for attending it, and wishing you a good month of June and then of July, and hoping to see you physically in person soon back at the UN when it will be possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.